Hey, so it's the day after matches 860. It's the day after we all learned of his death, and I'm pretty torn up. I know so many people out there are torn up. Um, by the way, I'm smoking the very last bowl of Foundry in my Missouri Meerschaum hardwood. I know, it's kind of weird to talk about that during this video, but that's what John would want us to do, right? We gotta press on. Um, It's so weird trying to explain this to people on the outside. You know what I mean? Um, my wife and one of my friends that I've told about this, like that, it seems very odd to them. But I wanted to share something that I learned after my dad died, and my dad was a minister, and so he was a big public figure, and more people more people knew him than we knew, if that makes sense. People showed up who he hadn't seen in years, who the inner circle of family had never met before, because they were in a church that he served 30 years ago. You know what I mean. And that's all really cool. And I think that the way the community is responding to the loss of our great figurehead is cool. But I wanted to mention the this idea that a psychologist came up with on how to prevent saying the wrong thing. Basically, like how what do you say to someone who's grieving, and what do you not say? So a psychologist named Susan Silk came up with this, and she calls it the ring theory. I've heard it called the concentric circles of grief. And basically, the person at the center of the crisis, be it a death, be it whatever, this definitely came into play when my son was in the hospital. And he was at the crisis, right? He was in the center, and my wife and I, we were in the next circle, and then our families were in the next circle, and then our friends were in the other circle, and then there was coworkers, and then there's associates, and then there's so the circles, like the farther away you are from the epicenter of the crisis, the farther circle you are in this imaginary theory, right? And the person in the center of the crisis, they can say whatever they want. They can, and my son was a tiny baby. He couldn't say anything, but, well, no, that's not true. He was very loud about it. And the person in the center gets to be as loud as they want. They can say, I'm cursed. Why, God, why? How could you do this to me? I'm so pissed off. They could say anything, whatever. Like things that you would never say. Like, they can say that because they're going through the worst time in their lives. People on the outer circles can say whatever they want, but only further out. They can only direct the grief and the anger and all the shit that comes when somebody dies or something like this. You can only direct that outward. You can send it out to the further rings of the circle. You can't ever send it back in. And I want to remind everybody that we're on the very edge of this circle. Like the YTPC was a big part of John's life, and he was a huge part of ours. But let's not forget that that there's like an actual family there, and it from what Katie is posting on Facebook, his daughter, it sounds like. I get the impression, and maybe this is just projecting, but I get the impression that they were not really prepared for what's happening in the community. And so I know everybody out there's got a lot of big ideas. Let's name a Cornel and Deal brand after him. I think that's a great idea. I want to see Haunted Bookshop 860. That's my wish for this situation. But whatever. And then I've gotten emails from people asking if they think it's a good time to start a box pass in John's honor, and then at the end we send it to the family. And all of that is awesome, but I also think it's worth mentioning that we, as his fans, need to remember that his family comes first, and they're the ones, like, we're grieving. We are. It's legitimate grief, but they're really, really grieving. The other thing I want to say, Katie, John's daughter, posted information about his celebration of life or service or whatever you want to call it, which is going to happen next week. And I, I think it would be great if a YTPC contingent could go. She has asked that no one show up smelling like pipe smoke, and I think we should sure as hell honor that. And it reiterates to me, he was a YTPC giant. He was also someone's dad and someone's husband, and they loved the man and not his pipe smoke. I mean, we loved the man too, but this was what we had in common with him, and they had a whole life in common. When my dad was dying, people came to visit that hadn't seen him in 30 years, and that's cool. But my mom was like, "Why didn't you come when he was alive?" And that was, again, that's a good, she was dumping the grief out to me, and why these people haven't seen him in all this time. Why is it important now to come see him? And that, what I think about this, and I cannot go. I'm looking into plane tickets now, and I cannot afford it, and I certainly can't afford to take the time off to drive, and I just can't go, and I feel bad about that. But what I would challenge myself and each of us to do is spend this time and effort on your living loved ones. And I think John's death is, if you can make it, fine. Like I think we should go. I'm just saying that, like, if you're out there and you're like me, kind of torn up that you can't go, look at spending that effort on being with people who are still with us. And John's death, as sudden as it was, should really serve as a reminder that nobody's immune to death. I mean, Match is 860, man. Like, he's just always been there, and I never thought he wouldn't be there, and now he's just gone. And with other YTPCers, we I think Derek mentioned we had the decline. We knew what was coming, and but this is really sudden. So yeah, spend your time. If you can't go to this thing, spend your time with someone that maybe you haven't seen in a while, but if they were dying, you would go see. And Lord, please respect their wishes not to smoke at the funeral. Pipe smokers are a weird bunch. Thanks for everything. Keep the ends out for the ties that bind.